Hello and welcome to this School of Humankind Meet the Faculty event. My name is Wyndham, I am the Blueprint Coach, and it is my great pleasure to introduce our newest faculty member, Graham Watt. Before I ask Graham anything, I want to read the intro blurb on this event. Graham Watt comes to School of Humankind as a multifaceted, multi-interested person. He's a physicist, thespian, coach, weightlifter, and all-around fantastic guy. Graham, welcome to this webinar. How are you today?
Thanks, Wyndham. I am great. It's a great pleasure to be here and to start my School of Humankind journey in a very real
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, brilliant. How does that introduction make you feel? I love it. Does it speak to enough of you?
Oh, I think so. Yes. Um, it's one of Angela's little masterpieces. So
Yeah.
full credit to her. She's packed a lot into a very few words.
Right?
All of it is true. Some of it is more comfortable than others, which is something I'm going
Ooh.
to speak about
Yeah.
in the future. But yeah,
Oh, I love it.
it says a lot.
Yeah. Well, let's get straight into it. Um,
Sure.
I remember when I was sat where you are, and Angela asked me a question, and just the phrasing of it, I think, is a really helpful one just to kind of get us into it. Your origin story. What
Mm,
brings you to where you are now, and all of those wonderful, remarkable things?
yeah. So I'll give you the slightly long version because we've got time.
Yeah.
Um, way back at university, I studied physics. So I've got 2 degrees in physics. And then, well, my my PhD was in I was looking at defects in man-made diamond films. We
Right.
have this
Yeah.
great idea that because diamond is structurally the same as silicon, um, there's all this hope that you can use it as a semiconductor. So we were trying to find ways to build microchips out of diamond,
Hmm.
which would be faster than silicon because it's a smaller atom. They'd be easier to cool because diamond conducts heat in a way that silicon doesn't. It sounded like a really great thing to try and make work. The problem is that diamond isn't actually that great a semiconductor. And we haven't yet managed to do it in any way that is reproducible and really very useful.
Mhm.
So I spent a very interesting sort of 3 or 4 years doing my little bit of that piece of research. Um, and then kind of decided to change direction completely and thought the environment seems to be a better place to work. So my first job out of university was doing computer modeling, looking at pollution dispersion in the sea. So I was helping people to build and design things like power stations and desalination plants, and minimize the impact that they would have on the marine environment with things like cooling water from the power stations. And I absolutely loved that. It felt like I was doing something very worthwhile, saving the
Mm.
planet. Felt like I built up my eco warrior credentials at that point. And I started off running the computer models, which was a fairly major component of my PhD was computer modeling. So that made sense at the time. And I moved into project management, um, bid development. So talking to our clients, really understanding what it was that they needed, finding ways to solve their problems. Became a team leader, picked up quite a sizable role in business development, which was a more sort of blue sky role, talking to our existing clients, potential new clients. What is it that you get from us? What is it that you need from us that we don't yet provide? Um, what have we not yet thought of that would be really useful to you? Um, so I'd been moving into a space where conversations were my trading currency.
Mm.
And that was the point at which I realized that actually I'd like to do something else with the talking thing. And that was where I began my coach journey. So I did my initial training in 2020. That was with a lovely organization called Coaching Development based in London. I did a certificate course with them. And then a couple of years later, I did the diploma course, which is the teaching-based qualification that's part of the ICF International Coach Federation accreditation program. And I finally got my accreditation December 2023. So getting on for a year ago now.
And have you been coaching since?
I have. So I'm in the very fortunate position that I've got my day job. I still have a day job, unfortunately. Is in a UK government agency, and I'm able to do a lot of work through that. So I have sort of easy access to a stream of clients through that direction, as well as the private people that I work with outside that framework.
That's fascinating. I love in a great many ways. I love one of the things I love most about the School of Humankind is the diversity of people who are on the faculty. And when you hear people talk about their origin stories and where they start and the trajectory that has brought them to be a member, to join the School of Humankind, I always find it fascinating. With what you were saying, you 2 degrees in physics, doing research on now. I'm an ex-salesman and professional BSer, so that's not true. So allow me to paraphrase. Something to do with diamonds being superconductors was part of your research. And then you're moving into the environment, moving into more of a business development role. I did 20 years in sales. And this conversational element that you then, having done all of this sort of scientific academic research, there's a couple of things I'm really interested in. One is the importance and power of conversation. But before that, this idea that how long were you doing the research that ultimately resulted in actually this isn't a very good semiconductor?
Oh, my personal piece was just the duration of a PhD, so sort of 3 years. But there's decades of work been going into that.
And how do you the reason it really jumps to the forefront of my mind is how do you deal with the fact that the thing you're hoping or trying to deliver ends up being undeliverable?
It's a bit of a challenge. I was lucky that it was, only a small part of my life. There are people who've been around doing more of that for more time, and it isn't dead. There are still avenues that need exploring. But even if it doesn't work out that way, there's all kinds of useful stuff you can do.
Yeah.
That is very much active, even at a production level. So,
Yeah. And what? Sorry,
it hasn't hit the buttons.
Okay. So, but what did you take from that? Because I think for me, failure has always been a millstone around my neck, and it's a self-created millstone. But I wonder, what did you take from that PhD process?
Yeah, I viewed it as an opportunity to reevaluate.
Okay.
It was writing up my thesis was challenging because lots of stuff you try and it doesn't do quite what you hoped for. But you just have to dig into it and say, what is this telling me? Because in the business world, there are all kinds of aphorisms about failure is a chance to learn and all that kind of stuff. But it is kind of true.
Yeah.
And as long as you can keep the open mind and the emotional strength, I would say, is an important part of it. Struggled with that when I was 20-ish. But as long as you can just keep that curiosity, that active mind, then you can always find something,
Yeah.
or something that you've learned.
Yeah.
And that's a very important part of the work I'm doing now.
Yeah.
As a coach, a lot of what I do is invite people to reflect on what seems like a great big problem or an absolute failure or something dreadful that's going on in their lives. And, okay, yeah, it's a challenge, but what can you take from it? What's the gold hidden in the mud?
Yeah.
Or the diamond, as the case might be.
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely one of those things that a lot of the work I do, and it aligns exactly with this, is, well, can we strip the stories and expectations away? Because we're ever really left with is what is. And unless we're willing to look at it for what it is, we end up wasting all of our energy fighting something that isn't really there. There's no point wishing something were different. It's, can I see it for what it is? And then what do I do about that?
You're starting to sound like my meditation teacher.
That's a good thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And then the second part was power of conversation. I think I'm relatively late. I'm 49 today, relatively late to really embracing that. How has that always been something that has shone through for you, or is that something that has developed over time as well?
It very much developed over time. I would say my kind of light bulb moment was mid 2010s, for 2015, 2017, around about then. I was looking, I was feeling a bit, jaded with what I was doing at the time. And so I looked back at some of the stuff I'd done over my career to that time. And conversation came out as a theme. I was particularly involved then at the type of conversation I've described with my clients, really understanding what it was they wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
Because very often somebody would come to us and say, I need this kind of study for that kind of thing. And we look at it and say, that's going to cost you 10 times more than you want to spend. And go back to them and say, what's this actually for? What's the fundamental question? And by the time we understood that, it was, yeah, okay, we can do that in 2 hours. Yeah, no worries. So that kind of resolving through talking was something I was doing at that point. But I was also very aware that I'd had some really powerful conversations as a team leader with some, particularly my younger members of staff, people who were sort of 3 years out of university, had learned all the technical skills working with me and my expert colleagues. And then we'd have a development conversation, an annual review or whatever. And I would ask them, right, you've got all the stuff. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do with it? What is your ambition for your career? And a lot of people just don't know at that stage. So I would help them to figure out what direction they want to move in. Did they want to develop their technical skills and become world experts in a field? Did they want to move into something more managementy, get involved in the people side of business? Were they just happy doing the job, running the numbers for the next few years, and then review and see if you want to do something different later on? Or what? And I realized that I seem to be bringing something to those conversations that some of my peers didn't. And the people I was working with really, really valued that sort of inquisitiveness, curiosity, coupled with a real strength of support, of course. Otherwise, it's just, asking questions for the sake of it. But with that hindsight, that felt like, actually, I'm quite good at asking questions and digging around what seems to be the issue.
Yeah.
I realize that whatever seems to be the issue very rarely is the issue. And, if it's particularly in my role now, if it's big enough to bring to a coaching session, it isn't what you think it is.
Yeah.
Because if it was that simple a question, you just solved it already.
Absolutely. It's a really interesting one. What you say about these people coming into their professional careers and a few years acquiring more skill and on-the-job experience and all that kind of thing, and then not really being able to answer, okay, what do you want to do with all of this? Where do you want to go? I don't think it's just people early in their careers. I think it is. It's one of those things we sort of get caught up in. We get a job, we get a career, and then we kind of get caught in the current of it and rarely give ourselves the real time required to go, actually, why am I doing this? Where do I really want to go? And why do I really want to go there? What is that going to be in service to for me? And so for people to have had that at a relatively early stage in their career working with you, I think is a gift for them.
I think you're right. People do just sort of go with the flow and end up somewhere. And very often that's what other people expected of them rather than what you necessarily wanted for yourself. But also, quite a lot of the work that I'm doing now is with people who are more advanced in their career. People who've started off in technical roles and then ended up in leadership, either because they've applied for the job or got a promotion, actually become a team leader in name, or just because they've been working in a field for 10 or 15 or 20 years and their colleagues look up to them. They're experts. They're the one that people turn to for advice. And very often people in that kind of position just sort of wake up one morning and look in the mirror and think, what on earth am I doing? I'm not trained for this. This isn't who I am, because they've stepped out of that comfort zone of doing the job. And now they're managing people who do the job.
Well, you used an interesting phrase that's saying people wake up and they ended up in management. And it's like, yeah, almost like the current has caught them and that's where it's dropped them off. You're now in management. And it's like, okay. Yeah.
And in a lot of companies, and certainly in the public sector, you get to a certain level technically, and if you want to advance further in your career, you need to at least take on a level of management, whether it's actually reflected in your job title. If you transfer from being a scientist or team leader, maybe, or just at kind of a higher level, but still in science or engineering as a subject expert, technical director, whatever you might choose to call it. You get to that stage where you're not actually doing the thing anymore. And you're using a whole different set of skills. And that's the work that I typically do with people in that position. I help them to reflect and understand what the job is that they're doing now. What is it that they actually need to deliver? And usually that's an element of managing people, an element of emotional intelligence, having development conversations with them. But very often there's also an element of maybe more strategic thinking, planning for the future, something financial, managing budgets, talking to company directors, financial directors, whoever it might be. And yes, that's different from what they were doing 5, 10 years ago, but we've all got skills in those areas to a greater or lesser extent. And by the time I've worked with them to understand what it is they need to do, and then looked at where they've used those skills, either earlier or in other parts of their lives, they're starting to get a picture of, oh, do you know what? I actually can do this. I just need to think about it in a different way.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, it sounds like you have this rich and rewarding life, not just with the coaching work and the day job, but the acting and the weightlifting and all these things, which poses the question to me, why join School of Humankind?
An excellent question. For me, School of Humankind is, I suppose, collective is the word. It's a bunch of interesting people, and the idea is that we get together and we have conversations a bit like this. We share ideas, and there's something about community. There's a lot about sharing, and there's just something about, I think I first became aware of it because I saw a post on LinkedIn, I think it was one of yours, making reference to, hey, there's this bunch of folk. And the first session that I saw was the one that John Burton did about what actors know. Obviously, with my acting experience, that caught my eye, because although I've done a lot of strictly amateur theatre, I know that I've learned a lot through that, but I'd be hard pressed actually to put it into words and then, relate it to other areas of my life. But I watched that talk and I was just so impressed. I found it really fascinating. And I thought, this is a bunch of people that I need to reach out to. So I sent a message, said, hey, I really enjoyed this. And the next thing I knew, I was on a call with John and with Angela. And I felt, oh, right, here's another couple of really smart weirdos. And I just felt totally at home.
I'm so glad you landed on the word. I was going to say, we had a very quick chat yesterday, and you used the word yesterday, and I would have brought us to it. But this idea of two wonderful weirdos having a conversation with you, and I agree. It is 100% a collective, a community. It is about sharing. It is about new perspectives, and it is about embracing our weird. The conversation we had yesterday, short as it was, stayed with me and informed the posts I did today. It is that there's this little weird bit in all of us that we're hiding because we're afraid of what people who are afraid of their weird are going to say about us. And it's like, actually, you know what? I don't want to do that anymore. And School of Humankind, undoubtedly, I think it's a perfect word for it. Everybody is this beautifully themselves and in their own weird ways. It's a wonderful thing. So what weird do you bring?
What weird do I bring? Oh my goodness. Well,
that's an unfair left field question. I appreciate that.
You've read what Angela said about me.
I did, yeah.
I'm weird in that I'm a physicist who recognizes the value of emotion. That is an unusual combination, in a professional realm, because people who've had technical training tend to live in their heads. We get very good at doing that strictly intellectual, absolutely logical thinking, which is really important when you're working in science or you're trying to build a bridge. I don't think, I'm not saying that when you're doing a detailed calculation, you should listen to your heart.
Yeah, let's not cut the corners on building a bridge,
Listen
right?
to your computer and do the maths right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we could just float. It's fine.
Yes. But when you're spending so much time up here, it's really easy to forget to listen to your heart, listen to your gut when you're doing the other stuff that goes round about it, whether that's in life or in managing your team. Because when you are working with a bunch of other people, it's really important to recognize them as human beings and take the time to respect that we can't leave our emotions at the door when we arrive at the office.
Yeah.
You know, if you arrive at the office and your kid is sick, or your cat's at the vet, or you've had a really blazing row with your partner, you can leave some of that, but it's still with you. And if you try to go through the day and expect your colleagues to go through the day as if nothing's happened, you miss a lot of the stuff that actually makes human interaction shine.
Yeah. Such a nice way of putting it as well.
And opening to that a bit more really brings benefit in a whole raft of ways.
So you've this evening mentioned curiosity, you've mentioned emotions and empathy, you've mentioned thinking. Talk me through your approach as a coach. What two questions? If I'm coming to you as a potential client, what's your approach, and what can I expect from time spent with you?
Yeah. My approach is very much based on a meeting of humans. I try to arrive at my sessions with an open mind and an open heart. And I encourage my clients to be the same way. To let the light in to whatever problem has arrived in their life, or their work, or their mind, or their heart. And I think what I do is I provide a calm space where we can have that conversation and explore what is known, dig down into what is not known, and eventually see what that tells us about the way forward. The words that I tend to use to describe it are empathy and compassion, because that is those are the foundations of any conversation with an open heart. And there's something about support and challenge. I do challenge people to, what does that mean? What's next? What are you going to do about it? But I do it on a very strong basis of, well, emotional support is what it comes down to. We need to be connected first. And we will spend quite a substantial period of time getting to know each other, building trust, doing a little dance, as it were, understanding where the boundaries are of where we're going to go, what we're going to talk about, what's safe, what isn't, what we might need to do a little more investigating on. And then once that trust is established, once we have those boundaries, we can do some really good work about, you've brought this topic today. What does it mean to you? What are the issues around it? What is it you actually need to do with it? All that kind of good stuff. that really gets into the heart of it, and hopefully shine a new light, look at it from a different angle, build a level of understanding and awareness, not necessarily intellectually, possibly emotionally, that just hasn't been there before.
And that whole supportive challenge, excuse me, is such an important foundation, I think, for all of us to be able to shift our perspective. You know, we don't know what we don't know, and we can't address what we aren't aware of. So that the idea of having a space that is first and foremost about building trust and transparency and honesty and belief in each other, and then having somebody in your corner who's going to go, I hear what you're saying, and I'm going to push you a little bit further on that because I'm not sure you're seeing what is. I think you're seeing a story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you used the term BS earlier. There's very often a little chunk of something that just isn't quite described. You know, there's a corporate phrase or a little bit of bullshit speak.
Yeah.
And very often that's the thing that I can pick up and dig into and say, when you say those 2 words, those 3 words, that sentence, what does that actually mean?
Yeah. It's such a great moment to be in, isn't it? Because you can sit there saying, okay, so that word salad you've just given me, I understand what each of those words mean individually. I've no idea what you mean when you say them. So let's get a bit deeper into it.
And 9 times out of 10, my client doesn't know either.
Exactly. Most of it is that kind of. My brother introduced me to the phrase that bullshit baffles brains. And it's like you just hear this content coming at you, go, okay, fine. I mean, we know lots of people in the public eye who adopt that approach. But having somebody call you on it so you can sit there and go, it was just automatic language that came to me and I don't know what I mean by it. It's really powerful stuff.
And that search for meaning is
just the small things in life, yeah.
Well, you know, just looking at what that sentence means, that word salad, as you put it, I like that. You know, just trying to unpick what that means is the first step in looking for meaning. But also, it can open up the whole coconut shell for some reason, is the image that's come to mind. And we can dig in and we can pull it apart and we can find out what's actually inside it.
Yeah.
And that is a search for meaning.
Yeah. Completely agree.
What we're all about.
Yeah. It's interesting. Speaking about School of Humankind and this collective of different people with different ideas and perspectives and particular types of people they hate? No. Help. Excuse me, that was a
That's a Freudian slip, Wyndham.
You know when you stop yourself and you go, now where on earth did that come from? I genuinely don't know where that came from. Anyway, people they help. Do you have an area or a type of person that you particularly want to work with, or that you feel your skills and your background and all those kind of things come together to make you the perfect person for them?
I've got 2 principal offers at the moment. The first one is what I described. I call it leading scientists. And that's the one for people who've been doing technical stuff and then moved into management and sort of had a bit of a crisis of confidence. The other thing that I'm in the process of setting up is a program specifically for gay men. Because a lot of us, I am a gay man. I should make that overt before I continue. A lot of us have got to a stage in our lives where, you know, fairly successful apparently to an outside observer, but we've grown up with an awful lot of shame and doing an awful lot of hiding. To give you an example from my life, it wasn't legal for me to get married till I was the age of 40.
Mm.
When I was born, homosexuality was still illegal in the country where I was born. So, the cultural and legal and mental and emotional ramifications of all of those things are things that we carry with us.
Yeah.
And I've spent quite a lot of time and effort in the last few years unpacking that shadow bag and laying down a lot of the weight that I've had on my shoulders as a result of it.
Yeah.
And I am very, very keen to do that for other people in my community.
Yeah, amazing. It's just listening to you speak, that whole I identify as a heterosexual man. I'm white, I'm educated, I'm kind of like the poster boy for what the world has been made for. And I struggled for so long. All the crap that the conditioning I was under. And you'd think everything was going in my favor, and I still struggled. So for anybody not within my particular group, you then have even more weight, even more guilt, even more shame, even more pressure to conform. I'm in awe of lots of people just being able to move through the world because the pressure is immense.
It absolutely is. And that's why it's so important to pick up that strand and do some work on it for me.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm Graham, I think you and I could talk for significantly longer. I'm conscious of time. What else do you want people to take away from this snippet of you? Obviously, we're going to come to the sessions you are going to be running for the School of Humankind. So there will be plenty of opportunity to get a bit more Graham. But for today, is there anything else you would like people to take away?
I think for today, thought for this afternoon, I would like to say something about something that came up for me yesterday, actually, is on the sort of general topic of don't let perfect be the enemy of good. It's about having the courage to try that thing that you know you want to do and give yourself permission not to be very good at it the first couple of times. Because things do get better with practice. And if it's something that's important, it's worth doing badly.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, and it brings me to mind with your PhD thesis as well. That whole kind of when stuff doesn't end up being what you want it to be, it's a brilliant opportunity to review, reset, redirect, or have another go.
You know how they invented post-it notes?
Tell me.
They were looking for a glue. They were just looking for a glue, an adhesive, something that would stick substance A to substance B. And they came up with a glue that was absolute rubbish. It came off. And then someone thought, wouldn't it be handy if we could have a little bit of paper that we could stick up here and then move around? Hang on, we've got the perfect glue. It's a rubbish glue. That's what we want. So it was an accident. It was a complete failure. And then they discovered a use for it.
Yeah.
And it's having that open mind, that inquisitive nature that makes the magic happen.
Yeah, it's that whole idea of, well, we think this is going to happen. We'd quite like it if it did, but being open to the fact that it might not. And if it doesn't, there's still, you said it earlier, there's still gold in there. It's like, but it might take a little longer to work out what the gold is, but there's still enormous value in all of life's experiences. And that could be a challenging thing to hear because there are some hideous experiences. However, there's there's something in everything if we choose to take it.
Absolutely. Don't say those words to someone who's in a really bad place and absolutely racked with grief.
Yeah.
You know, but there comes a point.
There comes a point. Yeah, there does. Thank you so much, Graham. I said we would talk about your upcoming sessions. What do you have planned that people can register for and get some more Graham?
So what I've got planned is I'm preparing a session about labels, the labels that we wear and the power that they give us and the limitations that they can impose on us as well.
Wow.
So the good and the bad side of labels is the thing that I'm working on. It seems to be straying into something about imposter syndrome as well. So I'll decide whether they become one session or two, or what else spins out of it. The more I think about it, the more rich it seems to become. So hopefully that will lead into a few conversations. I'm not sure exactly when that's coming up because I think we've just rescheduled it, but it'll be on the website.
Be on the events page.
In the calendar. Yeah.
And in the calendar. Fantastic. Okay. And if people want to get hold of you, obviously they can get hold of you through the School of Humankind.
Absolutely.
Where else? What else?
That's a very good way to get hold of me. Otherwise, I'm on LinkedIn. You can look for Coach Graham. My website is mycoachgraham.com. Or if you want to email me directly, it's mycoachgraham@gmail.com. Any of those should get to me.
Wonderful. Graham, thank you so much. I have already asked you, but I'll ask you one more time. Is there anything else you would like to add at this point before I wrap up for the evening?
I think I'm good for today, Wyndham. It's been a delight to meet you, and it's been a joy to speak for the School of Humankind for the first time.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. This is the School of Humankind. Please head to the website, schoolofhumankind.com. You can meet all of the faculty. There are beginning to be certain offers linked via the faculty page. So you can click on people's faces. They will take you to different offers and opportunities. The calendar is updated constantly. We are still working on this idea of 2 free events a week. And already, I have no idea how many events there have been, but we are racking up the number. The replay videos are available on the YouTube channel, which is School of Humankind. Please do get in touch. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you would like to see, actually. What sort of challenges are you facing that this incredible collective of heart-led human beings will have a perspective on? Somewhere within the faculty, there will be somebody who will have a view that may well help. But with that, thank you so much, Graham. It's been a pleasure to chat to you. I will leave you all to the rest of your days, and we will see you again soon. Take care.